Recovery Daily podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Miller. I'm a stroke survivor and grateful recovering alcoholic. And in this episode, I'll be discussing the intricacies of my neurological vision impairment after my stroke and sharing some personal experiences and insights into coping strategies, adaptive techniques that I've been using to try to participate still in things that I enjoy, but just change it up a little bit so that it doesn't hurt my head. And some details about the emotional side of it and my journey so far living with this condition. So first I wanted to explain what limitations I was aware of after my stroke while I was still in the hospital. When I first entered the hospital, that was a sign that I was having a stroke. I couldn't pronounce words. I knew what they meant. I could look at them and understand what I was seeing, but I couldn't translate that out of my mouth. Another thing that the doctors recognized was that I had limited peripheral vision. I could not identify like how many fingers the doctor was holding up in my peripheral. And since then, so in the hospital, when I was in there for about 5 days, and when I was in my hospital room, I never once turned the TV on, turned the lights on, opened the shades. I was not aware that I had a vision impairment. The only thing that I was aware of was that my speech came back for the most part after I got my clot buster. I was still having some challenges, kind of hesitating to find the words. I still have that a little bit, but I'm going to be working with the neuropsychiatrist to figure out what's happening in there. So I didn't know why I didn't want to turn the TV on or the lights on or open the shades. Basically, I had a headache that wouldn't go away. There was no medication. I mean, they wouldn't really give me any medication to speak of to combat the headache. They kept trying to give me Tylenol. That didn't do anything. That never does anything for me. So then they gave me a leave, which didn't do anything. So then they gave me Percocet, which of course is a big red flag for alcoholic. But I just wanted the pain to go away. And that didn't do anything either. Anything at all. I felt nothing from taking a Percocet. When years ago, when I was in the depths of my alcoholism, I was taking Percocets with my alcohol. So it's interesting that I was just so uncomfortable that Percocets did nothing for me. I'm actually happy that it didn't do anything for me. So without knowing really that that my pain was correlated to my vision, I came home, I slept a lot, and when I woke up, I would just listen to audible books and stuff like that with, excuse me, with my eyes closed. And I did in the evenings try to watch TV, but mostly, and I don't know that I really, it's terrible, the denial that I was in, but I never really would look at the TV because it bothered me. So I would look to the right of the TV and kind of just glance at the TV when there was something I wanted to really see. Otherwise, I was using my peripheral vision slightly in order to watch TV instead of looking directly at the TV. You would think that would be, a sign that maybe I needed to do something about my vision or that I needed to see another doctor. But no, I'm just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna do this now, and I didn't do anything about it. So I was just listening to the TV for the most part, and generally speaking, I was always feeling this rubber band, what I call rubber bands around my head. It feels like my scalp is super, super tight and that it's being squeezed. And sometimes was worse than others depending on what I was doing. I started to recognize at this point that there was something wrong with my vision. The connection between my eyes and my brain was broken in such a way that when I used my eyes, it hurt my head. Um, so the more I was exposed to visual stimuli, the more intense and aggravating that rubber band feeling would be. And if I would take a nap, I would wake up with this hangover feeling. And yes, it's exactly like having a hangover from drinking, a bottle of whatever the night before. It's just like a severe hangover feeling. And then over time, I had that hangover feeling all the time, not just when I woke up. And as I continued to not address the problems and keep exposing myself to this visual stimuli, it just would become debilitating, those symptoms, and I would have to just go lay down. Um, so when I first went to the primary care doctor, um, I had gone to a neurologist, a cardiologist, several different doctors. My primary care doctor was the one who attempted to give me a plan, a recovery plan for how can I work, get back to work slowly. I never considered not working. I never considered taking a break from work. I went right back to work. I luckily, I don't know if it's luckily or unluckily because it ended up, um, I ended up working myself into a lot of pain. But nevertheless, my boss was really flexible with me. And I would work like 15 minutes and then I would take a 2 hour break. And then I would work 15 minutes and take a 2 hour break. And this was the plan. And I would slowly increase the amount of time that I was working while sustaining the length of the break. So I would eventually start working, an hour or 2 hours with a 2 hour break in the middle, and then slowly decrease the length of the break. So I did this over 3 months. And I got to the point where I was working a couple hours and taking, I think, like a 15-minute break or something like that, or maybe a half-hour break. And then I would start working again. And the plan was initially that I would work means I'm on the computer. So I would be on the computer until I started feeling sensations in my head, and then I would take a break. Well, what I wasn't being terribly honest about was that I always had the sensations in my head. It never went away. It wasn't like when I would work for the 15 minutes that I didn't have any of the symptoms. I was just working through the symptoms for 15 minutes, and then I would go lay down, and then I would work through the symptoms for 15 minutes again. So when I increased my working time to 2 hours, I was working longer with the symptoms, and the symptoms were getting worse. And eventually, I was working 8-hour days, and sadly, I sometimes was putting myself through like 10-hour days. I remember a couple 12-hour days. Um, and just fighting through the pain. It's really terrible. I just never, I was going by what the doctors were telling me, which was, um, you know, nobody told me you shouldn't do this. Nobody told me if you feel anything at all, you should not work. Like, you have to make that decision yourself. And being the bullheaded person that I am, you can call it strong minded. You can call it, a driven, career minded person. But really, it was bullheadedness. It was denial. It was not wanting to take a break from my life in order to take care of myself. And I just continued to increase the pain. Like, I was telling myself that I was getting better because I was working longer periods of time. But in retrospect, I don't know if I really was getting any better. I suspect that my tolerance for the discomfort increased while my tolerance for allowing this traumatic event to change my life's trajectory decreased. In other words, I was in denial, and that denial lasted 2 years. I didn't go to the doctor. I didn't take naps during the week, and so on. I did in the beginning of my 3 months of recovery, but when I got to the point where I was reaching the end of short-term disability and I needed to apply to long-term disability if I was going to continue, I made the decision that I'm not going to do this. I'm going to work with my company to just have a super, super flexible schedule so that I can take breaks when my head is hurting. And that is just not, that doesn't, I hear myself say that out loud, like, I'm just going to take breaks when my head is hurting. Like, why was I doing that to myself? Why was I allowing myself to, like, think that that was the new norm that I was just going to have to live with? And that okay, well, now I'm just going to work, and when I'm in pain, I'll take breaks. That's not normal. People shouldn't have to work until you're in pain. That's not the way that one should need to live. But nonetheless, I was doing that to myself. Eventually, at the beginning of this year, the pain was like fast tracked to an unbearable level. It started with that same rubber band feeling, but it was severe. It was like my head was being squeezed, and it made me like squinch up my face because it was just unbearable. And then quickly this year, it was accented with sharp pains. When I finally got to the doctor, I was completely debilitated with pain in my head. I was permanently wearing sunglasses with the shades drawn and the lights out in the house. So pretty much it was like nighttime in the house. I didn't go outside because there was movement outside, and movement was what bothered me. So I made sure that I was within four walls all the time. There was no longer waves of pain. It was static pain, and it was completely unresponsive to medication. There was no reprieve from it. Um, so so what seems to be causing the pain is moving my eyes around or watching visual stimuli move. What that means is being in a car or watching a car drive by, being on a bike, riding a bike, or watching a bike ride by, walking and running, or, yes, watching people walk, or squirrels run, or birds fly. Sitting inside across from someone with a window behind them is terribly bothersome to me. And when I'm in that scenario, which you wouldn't believe this, but it's very frequent, that's when nausea kicks in really, really quickly. And digital devices of all kinds move, have screens that move. So that's TVs, any computer, phone, any of those things move. So imagine when you're talking, like pay attention to when you're talking to somebody and how much you move your eyes around. That bothers me. So people would ask me when I first entered into recovery, can I call you on the phone? Can you talk on the phone? And I thought, well, yeah, of course I can talk. But what would happen is I would have to close my eyes because when I'm talking, I move my eyes around. You know, I know when I'm like thinking really hard, I'll look up. I know a lot of people do that. They look up when they're contemplating life. You look up. Some people don't really make a lot of eye contact, so they'll look around the room instead. So that's one of the issues with talking. So when I do this podcast, I'll either close my eyes or I will soften my gaze and focus on something big like a wall. And I actually right now happen to be sitting in my closet and I'm facing a white wall. So there is nothing that I'm like focused on or anything. There's nothing that can move. So if I move my eyes, I'm always looking at a white wall, no matter where my eyes move to. So I know, strange. I'm in a closet, but it actually has been really helpful for my eyes. So, and that's some of the stuff that I'm going to talk about, which is what are some of my adaptive techniques to decrease the amount of pain that I'm dealing with. So, but before I get to that, I wanted to mention some of my coping strategies. And these I've learned in order to limit my exposure and discomfort. So one of the things that I do, there's 6 of them. One of the things that I do, the biggest one is close my eyes. If I need immediate relief, no matter where I am, I close my eyes immediately. Sometimes it's because I have a sharp pain. The past 2 days, I've been getting a sharp pain behind my left eye. I don't know. I don't know what that is, but there it is. Sometimes it's in different places. Usually it's in my temples, but today and yesterday it's been behind my left eye. So that's one coping strategy, is to close my eyes. Another one is that I only do one thing a day. And what I mean by that is one big thing. So sometimes you wake up in the morning and you're like, today I'm going to go grocery shopping. I'm going to work on, picking the weeds in the garden. I have a project I'm going to work on in the garage. So I only pick one thing, one of those things that I want to do. Um, because I have found that if I pick more than one thing or I try to muscle through more than one thing, I get my head starts hurting. It's just too much for me. Um, I hate that, but it's what I have to do. There's a lot of this stuff that I don't like, but I have to do it in order to um, avoid pain because I don't like that more than I don't like to follow some of these coping strategies. So, number 3 is I take a daily nap. If I miss my nap, I have to go to bed at like 8:30 or I'm just miserable, absolutely miserable. Um, but I typically take a nap. About 3 hours is what it's been coming out to. My puppy's take a nap with me, so that's really nice. Number 4 is meditation. So I have found that taking about 10 minutes and listening to one of the Calm app meditations is a great way of relaxing, and that allows my scalp, it feels like my scalp. I'm sure it's not my scalp. I'm sure it's the brain inside my scalp, but the sensation feels like it's my scalp. And the muscles, it makes it feel like they are relaxing. Um, so I do some meditation at least once a day, sometimes twice a day. I'll do about 10 minutes of the calm. There's the daily calm or the daily trip. Those are my two favorites. And then number 3, or no, sorry, number 5, I limit my time outside. So I try to spend most of my time with walls around me because the more contained my surroundings are, the less movement there is around me. So um, when I do go outside, so in the summertime, I spend a lot of time out on my back deck, and our house happens to have a line of townhouses like right up against us, which I wasn't a big fan when we moved here, but now it's great because there's no movement around me. Like there's no street, there's nobody walking by. It's just this line of houses. So it serves as a nice wall so I can be outside and yet not have a lot of visual stimulation. And finally, classical music seems to relax me about the same as meditation. And I discovered this when I did my meditation series a while back. If any of you listened to those, that was my attempt of doing meditation. I was trying to get myself into meditation and it worked, but I don't think I'm going to be the next Calm app or anything. But I discovered a lot of those meditations that I did, I put classical music in the background, and I found that I really, really like it. It just makes me feel really calm, and the more relaxed I am, it seems like just the better I feel. I think what it is the more relaxed I feel, the less I move my eyes around because I'm just kind of, slowly just, I don't know. I don't know what the word, like hanging out or whatever. I'm not looking around the room or anything like that. So those are 6 things that I do to cope with with living this way with this vision impairment. And um, in parallel to practicing these coping strategies, I've had to implement some adaptive techniques. And these apply when I want to still participate in activities that I can't do the usual way or it will hurt my head. So these are several of the things that I do in order to adapt to life with this vision impairment. So, number one, the biggest one that I have really benefited from, just because we live in a world of digital devices, is voiceover. So, I have not currently been doing a lot of voiceover because the doctors have been giving me this migraine injection. So it's an injection that I put in my stomach once a month, and it seems to have addressed the sharp pains in my head. And so without those sharp pains in my head, I'm able to look at a digital device. I can't scroll on the digital device or do anything, but I can look at the screen. And so that means that if I tell the device to open the YouTube app, then I am able to type something into the search field and then click search. And typically I'll click on whatever maybe the top video is or something, and then I'll look away and just listen to the video. So if I need to actually search through search results, then I go back to voiceover because I can't scroll in order to search results. search results. So voiceover has been really an incredible benefit in order for me to be able to still, in the beginning, communicate with other people on text. So I would just always use voiceover, and I'm sure voiceover was not always typing things that I was saying correctly, but it definitely helped me not feel alone and isolated, because otherwise, I guess without talking on the phone, not a lot of people are as available to talk on the phone as they are to text. So I also listen to podcasts and stuff. So voiceover's been huge. Number two, sunglasses. My boyfriend bought me some glacier glasses, and those are the ones with the leather side flaps that block peripheral vision. So I just got these about 2 weeks ago, and these have been great for wearing when I walk my dog. I still don't walk the dog more than a block because I just can't handle that much movement at one time. But the sunglasses with these peripheral, I have to make sure that I'm very careful doing things like crossing the street and stuff, which I try not to do. I try not to cross the street because it makes me nervous. But they've been really helpful to minimize my reaction, like my physical symptoms from when I go for a walk. Number three, when we turn the TV on now. So for the several months, we weren't turning the TV on in the house. And we tried different things like playing games and just sitting and talking, which was really, I feel like we got a whole lot closer by just sitting and talking so much. So that's been really nice. But it's also nice to watch TV. So now we will turn the TV on, and we have an L sectional. So I sit in the spot that's closest to the TV, and I turn away from the TV and face the wall. So I'm facing in the opposite direction of the TV. So this allows me to hear it really well because I'm sitting right by the TV, and I'm not inclined to look at the screen. When my boyfriend was like, he does it all the time. He's like, oh dear, oh, you should, oh, look at that, or whatever. And he doesn't mean to, I guess, but it's just natural. So he describes to me what is on the TV when there's something surprising. Um, so that allows me to at least listen to the news and stuff like that and actually feel like I'm a part of society. Number 4 is limit my time in any activity, taking breaks. So when I do things like sewing the quilt that I sewed a month or two ago, I will only do it for about 15 or 20 minutes and then I'll take a break. And that's because I feel my head start to hurt. And that's a signal to me that I need to take a break. So if I'm baking's been really nice because baking, you're really only doing something for about 15 minutes, and then typically your dough has to rise after that. So you get a nice long break in there. You can even take a nap while your dough is rising. So baking has been a really great activity for me. So, but if I go outside and I'm picking weeds, or actually this time of year is the Christmas decorating extravaganza in this house. So we have decorations everywhere, and I'm only doing things for about 15 or 20 minutes before I rest again. So it usually I throw up all the decorations in one day because I get so excited, but I'm just really tired and it's not easy for me to do it all in one day. So I've been doing it over the course of this week. And next would be I really like to go to restaurants, and I don't do it a lot now, but when I do, I will actually spend a lot of time looking down at my plate or looking at my lap. And I did go to lunch with some ex coworkers. I hate saying ex coworkers because I don't work there anymore. But I did try to wear my glasses part of the time. It's just, I don't know. I can't really figure out the most comfortable way to sit in a restaurant and not have my head hurt. It's just, there's so much. It's almost like I mentioned, sitting across from somebody and they have a window behind them. It's similar to that in a restaurant because I'm sitting across from them, but there's the whole restaurant is behind them moving. So it's a little challenging for me. So I do a lot of looking down. And yes, I have gotten to the point where I'm just sitting at a table at the restaurant with my eyes closed because my head starts hurting. So we don't do that very often because it's really difficult for me. But we do keep trying here and there. But we unfortunately keep coming up with the same results. Movies. So I totally miss watching movies. I haven't watched TV in like 5 months and I'm dying to watch movies. So what I do instead is if I'm really dying to watch a movie, I'll turn on a podcast. I'm still not totally familiar with all the different kinds of podcasts that there are. So it's fun to discover what kinds of like shows that they have on. So if anybody has any recommendations for podcast shows, I know there's a ton of like, real life true crime, I guess, podcasts. I like those, but that can be kind of a downer if you listen to too much of them. So I'd really like to listen to some sort of like drama stuff, but I listen to a lot of books, and that's really, I think, the best way for me to capture that feeling of watching a movie. I bought some Twizzlers yesterday even. So cuz I like to eat Twizzlers when I'm watching a movie, so I bought some Twizzlers so that I could eat them while I listen to my audiobook. I do what I can. Next is dictation. I talk a lot about how this podcast is a channel for me to use my voice, because one of the things that has never changed through my addiction and my um, stroke is my ability to use my voice. So the same applies on computers. I can use my voice to text, to write blogs, and to even work on writing my book. So I have been doing dictation in order to write my book. However, as you would guess, there's editing involved in that. So what I've been using for editing my book is AI. And I'm still getting comfortable with it and seeing if it's something that I think is acceptable in order to edit the book. I don't have AI rewrite the chapters in the book. I only ask it to fix grammatical errors and that kind of stuff, and spelling errors. So it's a work in progress, but I've been considering ChatGPT as my employee. That's what I've been doing. So anytime I need help with anything, I log on to ChatGPT and ask him to do it. And I've lovingly named him Chatty McChatterton. Is my ChatGPT, Mr. Chatty McChatterton. So those are 8 of my adaptive techniques in order to still enjoy things yet be very cognizant of my chronic head pain. Mental health is really what I focus on most in my podcast. Sorry, I have a frog in my throat. Excuse me. One thing I've shared with my sponsees in sobriety is that I don't welcome the thought of taking a drink into my mind. It's off limits. It's like I've told myself, Rachel, you aren't capable of thinking about alcohol as an option. It's a choice of what I allow and disallow in my thoughts. And this is also what I've done in stroke recovery. I've made the choice to not welcome depression into my thoughts. It's there waiting for me, this depression, just like my alcoholism is waiting for me if I let my guard down. There's a saying in sobriety that's something like, my alcoholism is out in the parking lot doing push-ups, just waiting for me to let my guard down. Or there's also another saying, no matter how long I've been traveling on the road of recovery, I'm always the same distance from the ditch. And these resonate very deeply with me. So I have to put the work in daily to support my mental well-being also. So this is just kind of an overview for me to connect with anybody who may be experiencing any kind of neurological vision impairment from a stroke or traumatic brain injury. And I wanted to share about how I'm navigating those challenges in hopes that maybe it would help somebody else. Or if this does resonate with you, please reach out to me. You can go to recoverydailypodcast.com, and my contact information is on the website. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, and I would really appreciate connecting with any stroke survivors, anybody who has experienced traumatic brain injury, or absolutely anybody in recovery or in sobriety. So thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you tomorrow.